Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm here to talk about the originals, episode 509, titled We Have Not Long to Love, which premiered Wednesday, June 20th, 2018 on the CW. I'm recording 30 minutes after the episode has aired, so huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, and then come back to see what I have to say about the episode. Otherwise, my other video reminders are up on screen. Take a moment to remind yourselves of those. I'm going to try to do this in 15 minutes, so starting the clock, and let's begin with what happened in this episode. So timeline-wise, I'm assuming it's the day after the events of 508. It's definitely drawing closer to Mardi Gras. Don't know if specifically it's on a certain date, but again, I don't know how far away from the other episodes Mardi Gras was meant to be, but I'm assuming it's the following day, since the city after the huge storm still looks like a mess, so not enough time has passed for it to be cleaned up or anything, so I'm assuming next day. Storyline wise though, I'm hoping I don't get too much into detail for this though, because this is just meant to be a recap. But I picked up on 3 different storylines. Each of them have their own little sub things to it. But first storyline focused around Hope's struggle with the Hollow. Second one is pretty much vampire versus werewolf again, the lifelong feud and all. And the third one is dealing with Declan's grief over Haley's death. So with the first storyline, we pretty much see Hope struggling with the Hollow, and that's more of an eternal battle as the whispers increase for her. And then we see Hope going up against Elijah externally. So she's using a lot of the rage that she's getting from the Hollow to kind of express that onto Elijah, who she blames for Haley's death. And throughout all this, Klaus is trying to figure out a way to help Hope and try to get a handle on the darkness, because as we know, he only had to deal with a fourth of the Hollow's darkness for the last 7 years, and now Hope has the full power of it. So he's worried for her. So he brings up the necklace, or the bracelet. It does not work. It seems to either the magic itself is burning her from the bracelet, so she can't use it, even though it was a little short reprieve. But they do find out that if Hope releases that rage in a violent way, it stops the whispers for a moment. So let that sink in. Second storyline dealt with the vampires and the werewolves, and that is with the purest vampires, so Greta's vampires, trying to reclaim the city and bring back the order it once was in under Marcel's original reign. So that's with the vampires in control of the city, the witches in fear of the vampires, and the werewolves exiled out of the city. However, because of this, the factions definitely band together. I think it's definitely Vincent. I don't know if it's all the witches, but Vincent takes his sides with the werewolves. Marcel and Josh take their sides with the werewolves. I don't know if it's the other vampires siding with Marcel and Josh that have gone up with the werewolves to take on the purists, but it definitely seems it's definitely not just the werewolves trying to fight for their right in their home. So there's that. It seems like it's brewing up to a huge war, essentially. So there's that. The third storyline is Declan's grief. So he does return from Dublin, and pretty much Freya told him over a text or a voicemail how Haley died, or that Haley was dead. So he's grieving over the fact that he didn't really truly get to say goodbye to her. He ends up meeting Elijah, who is trying to figure out what Declan meant to Haley and try to figure out how Haley lived for the last 7 years without him, because he believed that him leaving was the best thing for her. Also, throughout all that, though, Declan is exposed to the supernatural secret, and the fact that Klaus, Elijah, and Hope, and Haley are not human, essentially. So there's that. So the last scenes of the episode show Vincent holding a dead Ivy in his arms after she was poisoned, after she was taking part in a prayer in honor of the 3 that were killed in the church bomb. So there's that. So character-wise, though, with Lysina, that is the wolf, that was, I think she was meant to be Haley's beta for the Crescents, but she was killed by a bomb that the purest vampires had orchestrated in that church, which is what I just mentioned before. Now with Ivy, she died with a bunch of other witches when they were poisoned, when they took that final step in their tribute to Lysina and the two other dead people from the bomb. Don't know if they're both wolves or not, but Ivy and those witches died when they drank poisoned wine when they were finishing off the prayer. Also, character-wise with Emmett, though, he keeps saying repeatedly that he wants to restore the old order of the city, trying to bring back the old ways that Marcel had instilled in the quarter, which kind of brings on the mindset of what the difference is. What is so different about the way Marcel had instigated that separation versus what Emmett and the Pierce are trying to instigate now. So I'll bring that up later. But tidbit-wise, though, we get Freya proposing to Keelan, and she's been thinking of doing this for the last 2 years, just never finding the right time. And she did make sense, too, though. Sometimes for those moments, you want to wait for the right time, but the right time never comes, and then you find yourself in the heat of the moment of something. So in this case, Freya thought that Keelan got killed in the bombing. So that was kind of like I need to do this now, or risk not being able to go at all type of thing. So anyways, we get that happy moment for them. Also, we get Freya expressing to Klaus just how much she loves Hope, in what way. She says that she sees Hope as the child she lost centuries ago due to her Aunt Dahlia's hold over her. So there's that. Also, we find out that when Declan went to Dublin, he went to get his grandmother's ring because he planned to propose to Haley when he returned. So there's that. Also, Klaus mentioned that Rebecca will be returning to the city after she finishes tying loose ends up overseas, where she was originally before the Chambre de Chasse pulled her back in. Also, we do get Vincent and Ivy kissing for the first time in their final peaceful moments together before that final scene where he was holding her dead body in his arms. So we should have figured the moment they had that kiss, that kind of sealed one of their fates. It's usually the case on this show. So anyways, moving on to the most shocking moment of the episode, I think it has to be the proposals. The fact that not only did Freya get a chance to propose to Keelan, which I'm ecstatic for, but I'm still shocked because they are technically broken up at the moment. I mean, they were talking about how that day, the episode is focused on, the one day is all they have because Keelan was going to fly out the next day to continue her life while Freya stayed at the city with her family. So it was pretty surprising that Freya popped the question. So that's a surprise there. Also, another surprise was that Declan had planned to propose to Haley when he returned. Having the main reason he went to Dublin was to get his grandmother's ring. So that was a surprise there too. So I'll leave it at that. Moving on to top 3 favorite moments, I will have to say Freya's proposal to Keelan, a welcome surprise. I really liked what was said. I really liked the reasonings behind it, and the ring was just beautiful. Beautiful ring. And I really liked that she said yes, obviously, but I really like that they're moving forward and hoping to work things together with everything going on. I mean, now that the Hollow is in Hope, there's no reason for the whole separation type thing. So now that Hope has Elijah and Klaus and later Rebecca, Freya can maybe go off with Keelan and give her the part of her life that she couldn't give her for the last 7 years. So I don't know. It's a new chapter for the two of them. I'm glad they're able to have it. I was a little worried Keelan was going to get killed in that bombing, but at least Freya got to have this moment with her. Another favorite moment I had was with Klaus and Hope, just this whole episode. I like the teasing in regards to especially the whole hovering comment about it's just a lot of comments Klaus makes kind of I really like. So like when Hope asks, is he going to continue being a helicopter parent for like eternity? And he said like that seems a little bit extreme or something like that. I'll probably put the quote up on screen also, where she tells him he doesn't have to worry, and he's like, well, I'm your father, I'm always going to worry. And it's just like, it's such a cliched, like it's something we always hear from it's something we mostly hear, like I've always heard it from my parents. Can't speak for everybody, but I always get the argument when I tell them not to worry about me. Always the reactive response I always get is, well, of course I'm going to worry. I'm your mom or I'm your dad. So I always hear that type of a comeback. So to hear it from Klaus, though, I really loved it because, like, this is Klaus we're talking about. You didn't really he's come a long way since he found out he was going to be a father. So it's great to see that as well. And then just him comforting at the end when she confessed that she took on a little more than she expected and taking in the Hollow, and he was telling her like he was going to be there for her and he was going to help her through this, and telling her that he sees that she's strong and takes on strength from what he sees as coming from Haley, not necessarily from him. So it's just like those observations was really great as well. And then even the little moment they had about both of them missing Haley, and then Klaus was like something about how he missed Haley more than he knew, or more than she knew, or something like that. It was just really great. I always love the father-daughter dynamic between the two of them. Can't wait to see how much more it's explored, because now they can finally have a chance of actually being in close proximity to each other without worrying about the ramifications of dark magic separating them. So it'll be very interesting to see what Klaus being an active parent looks like. So there's that. Another favorite mine, I have to go with, I believe it's the different factions that were banding together against the purest vampires. I mean, it kind of looked like it was only Marcel, Josh, and Vincent from the other factions that were banding with the werewolves to take on these vampires. But I want to believe that it's the three factions, or I guess is there 3 factions or 4 factions? But anyways, I want to believe that it's the vampires, the witches, and the werewolves. Or not, I shouldn't say vampires. It's the Marcel vampires, the witches, and the werewolves banding together against these purist vampires. I want to believe that. And I like that. I like the speeches of how they talk about banding together, sticking and fighting for their home and stuff. So it was really great to have that mentality of sticking together. I hope it continues forward, but we'll have to wait and see about that. And another thing I liked about this episode was Marcel seeing the error of his ways. I mean, again, like I mentioned, it came to light in this episode that Emmett and the Pierce vampires really want to restore the order that was in the quarter, which was the vampires taking control of the city, the witches in fear of the vampires, and the werewolves exiled from the city. They want to bring that back, which is what Marcel had instigated since 1915, I believe, when he took control of the city. And he instigated that separation, or at least he had that type of a separation going on for decades. And I like that in this episode, they were kind of addressing why is the way Emmett doing it very different from how Marcel was doing it. I mean, because technically it's the same thing, but what made Marcel doing it better or more acceptable than what Emmett was doing? And he brought that up a lot. And then like the fact that Marcel also was explaining to Josh how it's very different because Emmett is trying to do it through violence, while Marcel had done it as a way to protect the different factions in a sense. So also it could be because of the times, could be because during that time, werewolves were dangerous to vampires because they didn't know if there was they didn't know about the cure to the bite, right? And the vampires, sunlight, they didn't have access to the daylight rings, or at that time they didn't, or something like that. And then the witches, they were taking their power and making very dangerous sacrifices, like with the harvest girls and stuff like that. So they needed to be put in place and have their boundaries met. So I don't know, I guess because of so many, I guess the last 15 years, so many things have been learned, so many things have been settled. A lot of people have grown to know each other. Also the separation happened because they weren't willing to learn from each other, like, or befriend each other and try to figure out, well, what makes them different and how can that bring us together in a sense. So I guess having all that growth happen between the factions and then suddenly being forced to separate and go back to the way things were, it's what was unacceptable. But I probably went on a tangent there, but the reason why I like this whole thing is because Marcel was seeing the comparisons and realizing that what the difference was, or putting himself back in his old shoes and realizing, well, this is why I did it. Why is this different type of thing? So, and it was because it was now doing it for the sake of violence. It's very interesting to see that type of parallel, because it didn't really occur to me until it was said that what was going on. Because it seems like, while my understanding is that while Marcel exiled the werewolves to the bayou, he still left them to live out their life as long as they didn't enter the city. But I think with the purists, they want to kill the werewolves regardless, whether they're in the city or they're not, because they want to purify. Because they believe the werewolves as beasts, right? And they definitely want to kill off any hybrids, so that's a question there. But I'll move on to the next point, which is my top three peeve moments. Now, one peeve I really had was the fact that Declan didn't have a clue about the supernatural, which I found very odd since he is Camille's cousin, and Camille's family was deep in the supernatural. I mean, they had these old dark artifacts. They knew about the factions. I don't know if it was just because it was her family in New Orleans that knew about it, or if it was a whole family type legacy all the way back in Dublin and everything, right? But I just thought it was very odd that Declan had no clue about the supernatural. I mean, I guess you could kind of argue that Camille was kind of the same way as well before she was roped into it. But I would have thought that he would have had an inkling. The peeve is the fact that because Declan has that connection to Camille, I expected him to have an inkling of the supernatural. Like he knew it existed, knew he was aware of it, and then him being in the city, he kind of would have his suspicions of who is what type of species. So essentially, I was hoping that if Declan had that kind of like sixth sense or something, or that background information about the supernatural, and then he got with Haley, he fell in love with her. He had his suspicions about her being a supernatural creature, and yet he still fell in love with her anyways, and he was just waiting for her to tell him what she was. I was hoping it'd be something like that, because then in this episode, when he found out that she lied to him about it, and he was kind of doubting her love and if she ever really cared for him, and then it was just like, don't go doubting her love now, especially when she's not there to defend it, right? So it's just like, I kind of wish Declan knew, or at least he had a sense of the supernatural. He didn't have to know about, like, for certain, like, who was what type, but I would have wanted to know, like, oh, I knew supernatural existed. I had a sense, and I had a feeling that maybe these people were involved, but I didn't know, like, that they were a witch, or I didn't know they were a vampire or a werewolf, or, like, whatever. But that was a peeve there. I thought they could do a lot more with Declan, especially when they dropped the bomb that he was related to Camille. And with that, he was related to Father Kieran. He was related to her twin, Sean. So I felt like they could have done a lot more with Declan when they connected him to Camille like that. And another peeve, though, was the fact that there is a witch that is helping the fierce vampires. I do not know who it is. I hope they suffer. But I don't know. I'm wondering if it's a new face, or if it's an old face, or if it's like a resurrected face. I don't know. But anyways, moving on to what moment will I remember most when I look back on this episode. First off, Elijah. This is the first episode where Elijah is himself again in the present day. I don't count last episode because he was kind of half and half. So there's that. I also like to think of this one being the United Factions. Until otherwise, that's how I'm going to think about it. But moving on to random questions very quickly. First one, if the whispers stopped for Hope after her violent lashings on Elijah, then is it possible that Klaus's own violence over the last 5 years, where he became Klaus the Mad for the rumors, could that violence, could that have stemmed from the Hollow's influence within Klaus? I mean, like, and then no one just realized it because Klaus has always been unpredictable and he's always been violent, even on the smallest of things. But I'm wondering if a part of that was because of the Hollow's darkness within him that was festering. So that's one question there. Another question is, did Elijah compel his supernatural speech from Declan too? Because also, thing was with Elijah, at the very end, he compelled Declan to forget about meeting Elijah, but he also gave Declan peace in mind from Haley's death. So instead, he had Declan remember the love she had for him and all the memories, and he took away the mystery and the grief and the anguish that came with her death. So I'm wondering if he also took away the supernatural knowledge with him, because that kind of came with meeting Elijah, right? So I'm wondering, I want that clarification, because then that's leaving me to my next question is Declan still going to be a part of Hope's life without Haley connecting the two of them? I mean, I'm under the impression that he's been there for a while for Hope, right? And then with that case, how much more of Declan are we going to get? Because I'm pretty sure we only really got him for like 3 episodes, right? So it's three of the 9 episodes. So I'm wondering is that all we're going to get of Declan now? So there's that. And my last question was, despite the proposal, is Keelan still planning to leave the city? Or is Freya going to leave with her? Are they still staying in the city until Hope is safe again? Like, what's going to happen? Because Keelan's original plan was to leave the city and go somewhere where she can make a difference, which you can't do in the city for some reason. I don't know why, but I mean, you can make a lot of difference in the city. But yeah, anyways, moving on to predictions very quickly. Based on the promo for 510, it looks like the episode is returning on July 11th, so that's going to be a 2-week hiatus. And it looks like Hope's darkness grows from the hollow, and it looks like Elijah grows worried for Hope's humanity as her rage continues to grow as well. So it looks like more violence in Hope's future. By her hands, her eyes flicker blue. So there's that. Because it's in 2 weeks, there is no synopsis released for the episode just yet, so I'll leave that as it is. But otherwise, other predictions for the season, I did find that Julie Plec confirmed that there will be more deaths before the series finale, and they're like really significant deaths. So it's like, I'm really worried. I mean, in this episode alone, we got Ivy and Licinia, who were playing very prominent characters in New Orleans. So I'm very worried when she says significant characters. I mean, she already killed off Haley. No one is truly safe. The only person who's really safe is Hope from this proposed death. So it's like, I'm very worried. I'm worried if it's any of the Michelsons. I do not want that to happen. I want them to have a chance to guest star on the Legacies spinoff. So, but yeah. But there's only 4 more episodes left, so I guess I have to wait and see for that. But that's about it. What did you guys think of the episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and predictions about what you think is going to happen in the final 4 episodes of the series. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. The link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. I am behind, completely aware of that. I hope to catch up very soon, but everything would be posted in one spot for you. Also, everything I post online is connected to my WordPress account. The link for that is down below. That's more organized, but it is in need of updating as well, so keep that in mind. If you want a detailed recap of the episode, a play-by-play, if you will, check out my Livejournal entry link down below. I write this as I watch the episode for the first time. It keeps things organized for me in a sense of what happened when. Quotes are put up, and moment thoughts are included. So if it helps you, fantastic. It definitely helps me keep things in line, because sometimes I just forget some things over other prominent details. And I've been doing it since season 2 of The Vampire Diaries, and I'm going to continue doing it to the very end of the originals. Still debating if I'm going to do it for Legacies. But yeah, so if it helps you, check that out. And that's about it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I will be back in a few weeks to see what to say about 510. But until then, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Bye for now.